Today on the Big Six in 60, the Knicks go up 2-0 on the 76ers.
It's a roller coaster ride, and as we would expect from this Knicks team.
The Spurs even their series with the Timberwolves.
A dominant underscore, put it in bold.
And the Ducks tie their series with the Golden Knights.
Lack of special teams was kind of the main storyline of this game for majority of the game.
This is the Big Six in 60, the six biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big Six in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big Six in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Knicks closed Game 2 late to grab a 2-0 lead over Philadelphia last night. Gavin Shaw and XJ with Locked On Knicks break down the win.
I texted our good friend, Locked On Pistons host Kuka Yob, as we were talking about again, as I was just imagining how the hate comments I was going to get if the Knicks lost this game, because I went from very negative to probably too positive in the two follow-up podcasts we did. I was texting him, and he was saying, "Yeah, I can see the Knicks sweeping this series," and I was like, "I don't know. I think they're due for a game where the way I used it." I phrased it was they're due for a game where they piss down their leg a little bit. We got that game where they pissed down their leg a little bit, but fortunately, partially because Joel Embiid was out, and partially because the Sixers got tired, and partially because the Knicks did make some big shots late, especially Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, they were able to survive it anyways.
Gavin, we got to find a way to stay even keel here in the playoffs. It's a roller coaster ride, and as we would expect from this Knicks team, with everything we've seen from them for the last couple seasons now, it's unsurprising. But when you play as I wouldn't say overall poorly, but when you don't execute well, you play a little sloppily, you go 7 of 26 from 3, 2 of 12 from the corner 3. You don't necessarily take advantage of the way that the Philadelphia 76ers were guarding Karl Anthony Towns. You kind of have sporadic, inconsistent offense. You don't have Mitchell Robinson. Towns gets into a bunch of foul trouble. Josh Hart injures his thumb. OG Anunoby leaves the game early. And you still managed to win the game. You gotta be happy about that. You gotta be happy about that, because at the end of the day, they're up 2-0. They have a bit of a cushion now against the Philadelphia 76ers, because no part of me believes that they're going to struggle so much to win a game against Philly on the road in this playoffs. I don't think it's not a situation where it's like if you drop a game at home, if you're the Knicks, you can't possibly get it back. So all of those considerations, I think that we should be pleased as, from a Knicks standpoint. Obviously, you're up 2-0. The big concern being OG Anunoby's injury. But that being said, at least at the time that we're recording this, we don't have clear information on it. So I would not panic just yet. And I will also add, I don't think the Knicks need OG Anunoby to win this series. I really don't believe that. I think that they can win it without him. Maybe it'll go a little bit longer than it would have otherwise, and that's a bit of a concern. But I think they can get it done. And I saw a lot of positive things, I'll say. A lot of things that the Knicks can clean up. And Mike Brown has proven, at least he's shown me this postseason so far, that he can learn from one game, some mistakes that he may make, and then be able to bounce back and improve things moving forward. And the team has definitely shown that. So I feel overall encouraged, and I'm not going to, hide my head in the sand with the OG Anunoby situation until we know more information.
Yeah, I mean, it's the playoffs. Even without Joel Embiid, it was never going to be easy for the Knicks. Obviously, the Sixers lose a lot with him out, but they also gained some stuff. Namely, Jalen Brunson did not have as obvious of a target to pick on in this game, and you combine that with Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, he was at 16 minutes going into the fourth quarter of this game with those 3 early fouls in the first half. Picks up his third. What was it? A minute into the second quarter, and that sabotaged the Knicks tonight, because this was a night where early in the game I was penciling Cat for like a 40 piece. Like he could have done it, right? In 27 minutes, he only ends up taking 8 shots from the field, 9 free throws, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. And that is with the Knicks basically ignoring him throughout the fourth quarter. Once Paul George went on him, apparently it was no longer an option to get him the ball, but Philly had absolutely no answer for him except for his foul trouble. And that was self-inflicted. He said as much after the game that he knows it cost his team. Like, One of them came on him sticking his leg out on a screen, which you'll see throughout the year. He'll pick those up. That's incredibly frustrating at a night where you don't have Mitchell Robinson, and the drop off was just dramatic. Even though the plus minus doesn't reflect that it was disastrous, I'm going to call Ariel Hukporti's minutes disastrous. It was just a completely different dynamic than when you had Brunson and Mitchell Robinson playing together, where Hukporti, one, was not able to nail the Sixers point of attack defenders on screens the way that Mitch was. Philly did not really respect him as a dive threat, and in turn they were able to keep 2 on Jalen Brunson. In turn, Jalen Brunson did not really get into much of a rhythm early in this game, and obviously you just missed Cat's ability to go one-on-one. That being said, the Knicks, in a game that Mike Breen had a crazy stat, most lead changes of any game in playoff history, if I heard him correctly, unless he was just talking about this year, but crazy back and forth game. And the Knicks down the stretch of this one, it was imperfect, I would say, to put it generously. And I think they benefited a lot from Philly and BJ Edgecombe, XJ specifically, missing a bunch of open threes, but it became a lot of Brunson iso ball, which doomed them against the Hawks on this particular night. Unlike game 2 and game 3 against the Hawks, he was hitting shots. And Mikal Bridges made one of the biggest shots of his Knicks career. And that, in conjunction, even with OG off the court for the final 3 minutes, was enough for them to pull it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of perspective here. I want to say this about Embiid. Embiid, I think, just the way that he was in that first game, and it feels crazy to say this is a former MVP level guy. I think he was a big negative for them, overall. Yeah. And to be honest, I just think that if Embiid is playing like that, the big caveat, right? They're just better without Embiid. And I looked at this game that way because Embiid could just not cover in the pick and roll. He had no chance, and there was no way to play defense that way. He was a major liability. And so, yeah, if you have Drummond or you have Bona or you have Barlow, they're going to be better defensively than whatever version of Embiid showed up. So that wasn't really surprising to me. I think the Hukporti minutes were very poor, as you said. But I don't think it was just because, they didn't have Mitch, and so Hukporti's just a big drop-off. Obviously, he was effective in game 1. I think that Philadelphia had better coverages defensively off the pick and roll. I think that the Knicks were setting those screens way too high up the court to the point where Oubre and whoever was guarding Brunson could just go under screens. Edgecombe did. They just went under screens and then met Brunson closer to the basket, or cut him off as he drove towards the basket. And, Bona and whoever was involved in the screen and roll was able to kind of show enough and make those passes really difficult to the point where the Knicks weren't really getting consistent advantages. And then Oubre and Edgecombe were playing Brunson really, really well. They were getting in on the ball, stripping the ball from Brunson. He was having trouble. He had a couple turnovers in situations that came directly after trying to initiate screen and rolls. And so I think that Philadelphia just played a lot better defensively. And a lot of that was just because they didn't have Embiid. Embiid was a major liability. And to be honest, he's better off not playing if that's the way he's going to play in the series from a Philadelphia standpoint. So all that said, I think that my biggest issue with this game was when Nick Nurse goes to the small lineup, he's like, we're going to switch everything. We're going to play Barlow. Forget about playing a 5. The 5s are all drawing fouls against Towns. No 5 can guard Towns, as we all know. And we're just going to put PG on Towns. Why did the Knicks just say, okay, let's keep playing the same way as though the 5 was on Towns when the 5 was no longer on Towns? Go into the post. It's the same issue that happened in the Hawks series when Quinn Snyder puts Dyson Daniels on Towns and to start a game. And I'm just like, why are you still trying to run the same type of action where Towns is hitting cutters? Take him into the post. Take him into the post. Force a double team. They will double. Quinn was going to double. He did in that situation. Nurse would have doubled. You were not leaving. We saw what he did when he finally had Paul George one-on-one in one situation. Finally, and no double came. He bullied him to the rim. Missed a dunk for some weird reason. But he absolutely destroyed him and bullied him all the way to the rim. I just didn't understand that strategy. And I hope that's something that Mike Brown cleans up. When you go to Paul George on Towns and you have no 5, don't play the same way. Say, okay, that's your adjustment. Here's my adjustment to that adjustment. It's taking Karl-Anthony Towns into the post. I hope we see that in game 3. And I hope we never see a wing on Towns with no center on the opposing team ever again, because Towns makes an example out of these guys. So hopefully that's the adjustment that's coming up.
The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. Welcome back to the Big 3 in 30 NBA. The Spurs answered after Game 1 with a 38-point rout to even their series with the Timberwolves. Casey Vieira and Devin Brown with Locked On Spurs have the recap.
A dominant underscore, put it in bold, dominant victory for the San Antonio Spurs, 133-95, in a game that didn't even play as close to that. They even the series at a game apiece, a couple hours, 48 hours removed, my friend, from a real tough Game 1 loss. Good bounce back, and in many respects, a much, much, much needed bounce back to not only get the win, but also send a message at the same time.
Hello, everybody. Hey, all I can say is this, Casey. Tim Duncan was not at Game 1, but he was at Game 2. Spurs, get on that. Get that man in the arena because the team showed up tonight. Casey, let's have a great show.
This is what you'll be talking about.
To the Spurs' credit this week, after, yesterday, I should say, after the Game 1 loss, the spirits were high in that locker room. The spirits were high at practice. It was just kind of a, on to the next one, right? And that kind of speaks to the way it's been throughout the entire season for the Spurs team, because they've had just the ability to bounce back in good fashion after tough losses in many of respects and in various ways. Of course, none of them to the magnitude that was Game 1. And San Antonio, this was the night that just played out very much like a Spurs team needing to get their get back, and a Minnesota Timberwolves team that was happy to get their split and head back up home to Minneapolis. Spurs by 7 at the end of the first quarter of play, 24-17. Fox had a quick 9 points, which was big. Minnesota, the defense is going to be a big conversation of the show tonight, because they kept this Minnesota offense, of course, the top 10 one, in check. 7 made field goals in the first quarter Timberwolves had, compared to 6 turnovers. Pretty heavy stuff. They responded, Minnesota did, in the second quarter by going 7 of 23 as well. So collectively in the first half, San Antonio holds the Timberwolves to 30% shooting from the field. And this thing really got away late in the second quarter. The Spurs were up by 12, and then they get spearhead this run towards the back end of the frame, force 4 turnovers. Vassell, Harper, Stephon Castle, Carter Bryant, all getting in on the action. And ultimately, it leads to a 24-point advantage heading into the break. Remember, I think it was kind of in a lot of people's minds when Minnesota was here the first time. They were, of course, down by almost 30, and that was the game Anthony Edwards went off for 55. So kind of inherently, when you go into the third quarter knowing that that's in the back of your mind, you're not totally exhaling yet, and that's a fan, at least that is. But there was none of that tonight. Spurs ultimately blow things open even more in the third. Julian Champagnie caught fire, knocked down 4 triples. They go up 39 at that point, and then the fourth quarter, by the time we get there, they're just showboating behind the back, passes to Barnes, dunks. Keldon's dancing on the sideline. You got a Plumlee, Biz, Olynyk lineup that are out there for the final 30 seconds of the game, and ultimately it leads to this 133-95 victory. Got this far, didn't even mention Victor, but we will, of course. 19 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, 7 of 15 from the field. De'Aaron Fox with 16, Stephon Castle, team high 21. Ant-Man held to only just 12, and the math reads a Spurs victory in a series tied at 1 game apiece.
And you chalk it up. It's 1-1. Won't be a whole lot of celebrating. More of a tone where that's how we play. That's how you answer a Game 1 loss, things like that. But the Spurs set the tone early, came out. We talked about it yesterday. That's what they had to do. It had to be a win like this to send Minnesota a message saying, we're here to play. We just, whatever happened in Game 1 happened. You guys got one from us. but now it's a series going back to Minnesota. Some interesting things from my eyes. Jaden McDaniels really couldn't get going. Same thing with Randall. Um, I don't the young fella from Chicago, Ayo or Io.
Io DeSumo. That
Io,
actually
yeah,
was
Io
Finish your
is
thought. Go ahead.
first game back after missing, 2 games, but actual days, you're looking at what, about 5, 6, but say a week.
Yeah.
He's just getting back into the flow of things. And then another thing that helped the Spurs out, Ant's first 5 shots were threes. So I don't know how that knee's feeling. I thought as this thing moves forward, he was going to get healthy. It seemed like today, because he had that success yesterday with the jump shot, he relied on that. I don't know how that knee is feeling, but if you're the Spurs, you got to keep an eye on those 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you got to keep an eye on them because, I can go on and on about Shannon Jr. and a couple of the other guys, Nas, but these guys right here are kind of the meat of what it is that Minnesota gets done, especially when you have Ant and Ayo coming off the bench. So the Spurs were able to keep them in check, Casey. They did a good job, like I said, setting the tone early. De'Aaron Fox answered the call. All right. The defense was there, and it started from the jump ball with him. So that was great. Great to see that out of him. And then Victor was great in the early minutes. And then, the Spurs got up. And then, of course, the third quarter happened. A couple of them got hot, Juju. And it was no looking back after that. So, Casey, it was a great game, too, for them to answer back.
Yeah, what I think was really notable with this was that from the start, Minnesota had a whole bunch of things that didn't go their way. That just was out of rhythm between Anthony Edwards, like you said. Those 5 shots that he took off the jump, missed all 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Daniels was in foul trouble relatively early, never really got into his groove. And those are the type of things that sometimes when you're a team at the caliber that the Timberwolves are at, you can find ways to compensate and win. The Spurs didn't give them that chance tonight. The Spurs didn't. They jumped on them early. They smelled blood. They attacked. They got this thing done quick and easy. The Stars didn't even play the fourth quarter. Well, as you'd expect. We didn't even talk about the assist turnover thing. They forced 22 turnovers compared to Minnesota's 19 assists. So context, yes, it's significant in that they bounced back, and not only did they bounce back, they hit him with a punch too. And I guess, our buddy Matthew Tynan, he was reporting that Pop had a film session yesterday with them, looking at game 1. So in many respects, I mean, they kind of had no choice, because if they lost game 2, I don't know if he would have let that back in the gym.
Oh, the doors at the Rock would have been locked. They're like, hey, man, take that to the park. There's plenty of them.
The Ducks tightened up defensively and sent the series back to Anaheim tied with the Golden Knights. Kyle Keir with Locked On Ducks takes you through the win.
Let's talk about how the special teams, or should I say lack of special teams, was kind of the main storyline of this game for majority of the game. Anaheim coming into this game, they were 0% in the game 1. Going back to the Edmonton series, they had a 50% power play percentage. They were the number 1 power play throughout round 1, looking stellar. They were taking it to the Edmonton Oilers. And then game 1, you're watching this team go up on the power play, and you're like, is Edmonton's penalty kill just that bad? Are the Ducks just all of a sudden their power plays that bad? Is Vegas this good on the penalty kill? I think it's a little bit of a mixture of both. I don't think the Ducks really prepared. I'm not saying that they didn't prepare, but I just think going from the Edmonton penalty kill to the Vegas penalty kill, there's definitely a difference. Edmonton, a little bit more static, not as aggressive. Whereas with Vegas, they are hounding whoever has the puck right away, and they kept the Ducks out to the perimeter. And another issue is that the Ducks sort of added to their own. They were kind of kicking themselves in the back with their own power play, which is how the way that they were playing. So then after game 1 of having no power play success, they come into game 2, you think, all right, hopefully they'll adjust here. Well, They end up having 5 power play opportunities in this game, and they come away with 0 power play goals again. They have a 0% on the power play so far this entire round in these 2 games. Just tough. 9 power play opportunities now, and they cannot score on Carter Hart when they have the man advantage. It is very abysmal. This first period of the game now, the Ducks, you thought, okay, this is just going to be crazy. They're going to roll away with this one because Vegas could not stay out of the box. They were just rolling one after the other into the penalty box. Just, all right, boys, come on down. There was a 4-minute double minor. We got a high sticking that led to blood. Then you have a 5-on-3 during that period where a penalty was already called. Then you get the double minor. Then you get another penalty. It was just penalty galore by Vegas. 4 penalties in the first period. Basically 6 minutes of penalty time altogether, including the 5-on-3 mixed in there, and they cannot score. And you're watching the power play. When they had the 5-on-3, they stuck to the perimeter the whole time. It was like there was no objective, like no plan, no like, all right, we're gonna try to pull them this way and you're gonna shoot it. Everyone just kind of kept moving it back, like, all right, yeah, you, no, you, okay, all right, okay, maybe, no, oh, all right, okay, nope, nope. And you just with the 5-on-3, you gotta funnel pucks towards the net and take advantage of those extra lanes and just take the squeeze in, pressure them down, get that triangle collapsed, and get some shots through. Move your feet, get guys going in front of the net, and take away the eyes of the goaltender. I just don't know what was going on there. They just continue to stay on the outside and work the perimeter, and then they get back into the power play. Same thing. They're just sticking to the perimeter, moving the puck around, and you're not really seeing much of the puck trying to go towards the net. It just seemed like no one had the clear green light of who was going to be the shooter or when to shoot or what the plan was on that power play. And then finally you get one kind of later in the game, that 5th one, and they definitely came out a little bit more aggressive. They were getting a little bit more shots up and trying to get guys going, but it just was there. Nothing can get through right now on this power play. Man, it's just crazy to come back to from a 50% top power play to come in after going against the Edmonton Oilers. You think, oh, this is going to be a little tough. They've got good special teams on their end. And it was complete opposite. Now you're coming here and you're just seeing how much of a different situation Vegas is compared to Anaheim. And the story, though, I think, to not stay in the negative with the power play, yes, that is a major thing. But the Ducks did a great job to not let it get to them. They didn't get swamped down. Usually when a team can kill off a 5-on-3, and especially when you're killing almost 6 minutes straight of penalty time, usually that momentum swing all of a sudden comes back to you. You're taking the puck in. You got a chance after chance. And it didn't go that way. The Ducks, all credit to them. They continue to push. They continue to have the drive through, and they were taking the play to Vegas that entire game. It took a while for them to crack through, but eventually they finally figured a way to get in the puck in the net and get behind Carter Hart. And once they had that going, they continued to pressure. They didn't hold back. They didn't sit back like they did with Edmonton when they finally got a lead on Edmonton. This game, they came in and they hit them hard, and they continued to push, and it was drive after drive, all 4 lines going. And eventually the non-power play success, that ends up being a non-storyline overall. Like it is still a major storyline, but it doesn't become this, oh my gosh, the Ducks were miserable because they couldn't score. They kept staying strong and they fought through, and they got the goals that they needed. They come away with a 3-1 win. And now it's a 1-1 tie series, and they're coming home to Anaheim, where we know the home crowd's going to be very, very powerful, very, very loud. OC showing up for the watch parties as well, celebrating for some AI things going on. Oh, I think I squeezed my phone. Everything's going crazy. But I heard the watch party was great. You saw the videos online on Instagram and TikTok and everything, and X, watching the watch party explode after the goals are scored. This is a great time for the Ducks, and like, whew, excuse me, sorry, I'm just, that game just drained me. Just having the heart attack of one goal games or 0-0 games are so stressful, and they drain me so much, because you're just like, every little thing you're like, oh no, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh no, oh gosh, oh no, that's it, oh gosh, oh no. But once they finally got that second goal with Leo Carlsson, that kind of gave me the breathing moment of that game. I felt like now the Ducks have it. The 2-goal lead was all they needed to really feel comfortable in that game. And they eventually get that empty netter. So you've got this special teams that cannot score right now, but if they come back home, they can get a good power play going, and they finally start scoring on the power play. That's just another tool for this team, and that's going to be huge for them. Another positive here is, on the other end of special teams, the Ducks penalty kill has been solid as well. They are giving up 0 power play goals themselves. So Vegas unable to score when they get the man advantage. Ducks unable to score when they get the man advantage. Anaheim, I feel like, has been definitely peppering them very well. We'll get into how Dostal stood tall in the penalty kill for Anaheim in game 2. But overall, there feels like there's just everything going for Anaheim, where they got these opportunities, but they just aren't getting the follow-up and the success on the power play. But eventually it's going to come through. They're going to figure it out, and adjustments need to be made, because if the whole thing with Jay is that he can get the power play going and only against Edmonton, and he can't get this power play to score on Vegas, then what are we doing here? And it just looked like a totally different power play. So let's hope that gets together. But good on the Ducks for staying strong, not letting it get to them, and they come out with a series tied to come back home. Always good to take a split when you're on the road. Now I said it's going to be very similar to the Edmonton series. Now they get to take 2 home games, and obviously Vegas, a good team on the road, but Anaheim, they've had their number here at the Honda Center, and I expect an explosive game.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Sixers let another fourth quarter getaway in New York, falling into an 0-2 hole against the Knicks. Mark Varzetta and Keith Pompey with Locked On 76ers talk it through.
The numbers overall, you have the individual numbers, but overall, basketball can be a very simple game to understand sometimes. Got to make shots. And in the fourth quarter against a team like the Knicks, in a very tight basketball game, you can't go 4 for 19 in the fourth quarter. You can't go 1 for 10 from 3 in the fourth quarter. And you sure as hell cannot only score 12 points in the fourth quarter. What happened?
I mean, what happened is I feel like Tyrese Maxey was just gassed. I mean, when we look at it, Tyrese Maxey played all but 72 seconds of that game. And when he was off the floor for those 72 seconds, it was a disaster. The Knicks went on a quick 6-0 run. Nick Nurse was like, I got to get him back out there, right? So, when we look at that fourth quarter, I mean, there was a point, I want to say it was either in the fourth or the third quarter, where Maxey is like fouled, tripped up, and he's sitting on the court. And everyone's like, is he okay? Is he okay? He was totally gassed, and he took his time to get back up, right? So you look at that and you see him. He scored 5 points in that quarter on 2 for 7 shooting. He was 0 for 3. from shooting, and he drew a lot of criticism on social media and stuff like that, saying that he was getting exposed and all that, the whole nine. But when you look at it and you look at what Paul George did and what VJ Edgecombe did in that fourth, they were a combined 0 for 9. That cannot happen. Now, yes, Maxey has to play better, but when he's struggling, you got to look for those two guys to step up. Quentin Grimes was on the floor for 5 minutes and 19 seconds of that fourth. He didn't attempt a single shot attempt. So the guys who scored, you got Kelly Oubre going 1 for 2. He had 5 points. And Dominic Barlow, who played 10 minutes and 54 seconds of that quarter, made his only shot attempt in there. But Maxey went 2 for 7, 0 for 5 for Paul George, and 0 for 4 for VJ Edgecombe. Now, they played a great game. They made it competitive. But when it came down to the clutch, right, we look at Jalen Brunson stepping up, right? Maxey didn't. Mikal Bridges hit a big shot. Josh Hart was doing what Josh Hart does, right? Karl Anthony Towns had 9 rebounds in the quarter. 9 rebounds in the quarter, 2 assists. Whereas the Sixers players just didn't step up, and you have to wonder if not only was Maxey being gassed, the same thing could have happened to Edgecombe and Paul George, because PG played 42 minutes and 57 seconds, right? Edgecombe played 39 minutes and 54 seconds. So you wonder if fatigue has something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, this is all on top of playing a 7-game series against the Celtics. This is all on top of Maxey and Edgecombe really leading the league in minutes throughout the entire season. It's pretty insane. So I can understand why a guy like Maxey would be tired. I can understand where, you dig as deep as you can and then you hit rock bottom, unfortunately. And that's what it looked like in that fourth quarter. That's not an excuse. It's just an acknowledgement of what I saw. I think Maxey's a much better shooter than a guy that's going to only score 7 points in the second half after scoring 19 in the first half. So I think you do have to acknowledge that. So my question more so is, where's PG in that? Where is VJ in that? And I know he was logging a lot of the minutes, but, young bull got to keep it coming. You know what I mean? And then you also have a guy like Quentin Grimes. Where's the 2 threes from the guy off the bench? Where's 3 threes from the guy off the bench to try to help you in that regard? Because nobody else was stepping up and doing it when the starters were starting to hit that wall. There was nobody there to pick him up. Kelly Oubre hit a 3 in the early goings of the fourth quarter. It'd be the only 3 that they would hit in that quarter. There were a couple of moments there. I mentioned shots. You look at these moments in the fourth quarter where Oubre hits that 3. Then you see open opportunities for VJ and Oubre to hit another one after Josh Hart made it a 99-99 game about the 6:20 mark of the fourth quarter. Then you see VJ miss a 3. It was a 101-99 game in favor of the Knicks at that point. Maxey misses a layup, then misses a 3, I think after they got the offensive rebound. And then VJ misses another 3. And nobody, PG hit one late in a sort of a Hail Mary type of situation from the wing. It was just ice cold. And I think Nick Nurse put it best after the game. It's just like, hey, you hold a team to 19 points in the fourth quarter, which they did defensively. You do enough defensively to win that quarter and certainly win the game. But offensively speaking, you can't miss wide open looks. And in those situations, whether it was VJ, whether it was Oubre, whether it was Maxey, whether it was PG, all those guys had open looks in the fourth quarter, and it was clank, 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 and clank. And these are shots that might have been the dagger, but instead in the final 6:51 of the fourth quarter, they get outscored something like 13-3 in the final 7 minutes. Or 6:51 of the fourth quarter. They had no answers. They had no answers. One guy that did step up, though, and I thought defensively and offensively stepped up for the Sixers, wasn't great by any means, but with Barlow having injury issues, foul issues, Bona having foul issues. I'm sorry, Drummond and Bona having foul issues. We saw Dominic Barlow in this game coming into the third quarter, had an instant impact, and was actually on Jalen Brunson for quite a bit there in the second half. What'd you make of Barlow's performance?
I think he played well. Yeah, he played extremely well. There was a couple plays where one play in particular where Brunson, scored on him and rather easily. But for the most part, he did well. I think that the thing that helped the Sixers out to be able to play him last night was the fact that Karl Anthony Towns and the backup center, let's see, Mitchell Robinson didn't play, and then they had another center who came in and he got into foul trouble as well. So what happens is the Knicks had to go small ball. We saw at times where Josh Hart was playing center. They would bring in other guys to do it. And that enabled the Sixers to say, okay, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and bring in Barlow and have him as our center. And I felt like he played extremely well. He's a guy who, even though he was the power forward, he's athletic enough to switch on other guys and do things. So I felt like the fact that Cat got into foul trouble, the backup guy got into foul trouble, and Mitchell Robinson wasn't there, it really played in the 76ers' hand, so where they could play their style of play and get Barlow out there.
Yeah, the other thing with Bona, while he was in the game, 6 offensive rebounds he was able to get for the Sixers in that regard, which was a great thing for him. Any surprise there of Barlow or of Bona coming off the bench as opposed to Drummond? Why do you think Nurse went with that order?
No, you know what? It's kind of like when we look at who's playing better at this particular time. As much as Barlow shows stints, when we were talking about the Boston Celtics series and everything like that, Drummond was playing better, right? He played better. So I think that's who they went with in that one. And also I guess you felt like, here's the thing. It from a looking back and like somebody like, hindsight 2020, you would think that he would be better because talking about Barlow, because he's a little bit more athletic and then he can go do things with Cat. But also, let's face it, he stays in foul trouble a lot. I feel like him coming off the bench this game, it benefited him and the 76ers a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like he probably would have gotten into a lot of early foul trouble because they would have ran things at him and he would have been doing, as he always does, jumps too soon. But yeah, it's weird because a lot of people felt like Barlow was the one player to go. But I had a feeling that it probably would have, even though hindsight would tell you to go the other way, I had a feeling it would be Drummond just because of Barlow's struggles in the last round.
The NHL playoffs are here, where every shift matters, every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like the performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. They also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiette, performance medicine for men. Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Patriots have a real reunion question with Stephon Diggs back on the market after a year away in New England. Nick Cattles with Locked On Patriots lays out his situation.
Stephon Diggs, back in New England? Stephon Diggs was found not guilty on all charges this week in a court of law. And I am here to tell you, even though Stephon Diggs was found not guilty, there is not a single chance he lands back in New England. I give this no shot of happening. Why? Why do I give this no shot? Because usually I say anything is possible, right? I don't think this is even possible. And if it happens, egg on the face, I'll be the first to admit. But I do not anticipate Stephon Diggs being a Patriot in 2026. Let's start with the deal that's all but done for the guy by the name of A.J. Brown. Every conversation we have about wide receiver, whether I like it, you like it or not, every single solitary conversation that we are going to have from this point moving forward, and this has been the case really for the past couple of months, but every conversation from now until early June, we're going to have that caveat when we talk about receiver, when we talk about this offense, we're going to have that asterisk, A.J. Brown. We're going to have it right at the bottom of the screen, right? A.J. Brown. I should actually have it on the screen every single episode. Caveat, asterisk, A.J. Brown, June 2nd or June 3rd. The A.J. Brown deal is all but done. I feel like there's an arrangement between Philadelphia and New England. I have been saying this for the past couple of weeks, ever since the draft. I think it's clear that this thing might not be quote-unquote officially official, but there is an arrangement between the Eagles and the Patriots that Brown will be a Patriot early June. So that's just the first reason. You're fully focused on A.J. Brown right now if you are the Pats. Second reason why I give this no chance of happening, a return of Stephon Diggs to New England, is because the Patriots went out and signed Romeo Doubs. They intentionally and purposefully said, we don't want Stephon Diggs back given the circumstances, off the field, on the field, in the checkbook. We don't want to be in the Steph Diggs business unless it works better for us. We don't feel like it's going to work out better for us, so we are going to say goodbye to Steph Diggs. Thank you for your service in 2025. You were truly tremendous, exceeding all expectations post ACL. But we feel like going out and signing Romeo Doubs is what's best for business. When the Patriots signed Doubs, he was put in the role of Stephon Diggs, and he will remain in that role. I did not think that Romeo Doubs was going to get the vast majority of the time on the outside. I never thought that was going to happen. Can he play outside? Sure. Will he play outside? Probably. Will he be out there a ton? I don't think so. I think the Patriots, as soon as they realized that Stephon Diggs was not going to be cost efficient for them or whatever else it was, they said, hey, we'll just pivot. We'll bring somebody else in to play that Z role. And that guy is Doubs. And he is signed, sealed, and delivered to a contract that pays him $17, $18 million a year, which begs the question, do you honestly believe in your heart of hearts, even if the Patriots were interested in Diggs, do you honestly believe that at the end of the day, they would write the checks for A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Stephon Diggs? As excited as those three names make you, do you think the Patriots would dump that much money into the wide receiver position to pay all three of those guys? Because I'm telling you right now, Stephon Diggs is going to go out there and get the best deal he can get. He's not looking to sign some kind of cheap deal. He's looking for a deal that is respectable in his eyes. And we all know that Diggs is very confident, believes he is a great receiver. And again, he exceeded expectations last year. The type of season he had last year should lend him well in free agency, even though it's very late in the process. He should get a pretty good contract, given what he did a year ago and how much he helped Drake May take that step forward. Let me ask you this as well. Even if the Patriots were interested, even if the Patriots were willing to pay the money, even if the Patriots said, we signed Romeo Doubs to have that role in this offense, but we can make this thing work, do you think Stephon Diggs would want to come back to New England? Do you think that Diggs would be interested in the Patriots? Do you think Diggs would be interested in signing a contract and maybe being the third receiver on the depth chart? I don't think Diggs is going to get a Dobbs-type contract from anybody. I think he'll get a reasonable contract, a good contract, but I don't think he's going to get the Dobbs-type contract. So do you think that Diggs would sign a deal that makes him the third highest paid receiver on the roster? And do you think Diggs would be okay in the final few gasps of his NFL life? Do you really feel like he would be just fine settling in as the third guy? What about Stephon Diggs would tell us that he would be okay being the third or fourth banana in an offense? Nothing. Nothing that I have seen. Diggs has the alpha mentality through and through. Now, he was willing to be the second fiddle to Nico Collins a couple of years ago in Houston. But being the second fiddle is not the third fiddle. And being the third fiddle in a place where you were the first fiddle last year, that's even tougher. Diggs is going to want targets. He's going to want to produce. And I don't think those opportunities are going to be in New England with A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs in the mix. Now, even if you said the Patriots were willing to pay all three receivers, even if you thought Stephon Diggs was willing to be the third receiver in this offense, would Diggs returning to New England, would that be the best decision for the Patriots long term? You're going to have A.J. Brown, who's nearing 30, has his own knee questions. You bring back a Stephon Diggs who has obvious health questions, even though, again, he exceeded expectations. It's a torn ACL. He's still in his 30s. Do you think it would be best for business for the Patriots to bury Kyle Williams and bury his possible development and push Kyle Williams further down the depth chart by signing Stephon Diggs? Just none of it makes sense. I think the ship has passed. The opportunity is gone. Without even paying much attention to the fact that Diggs tends to wear out his welcome. He's usually pretty good. He's usually playing ball for the first year, year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe. But he tends to wear out his welcome. In this case, again, that he was cleared of all charges, not guilty, that was not the only distraction going on. The week of the Super Bowl, you had the Cardi B relationship stuff. Before the season, you had the pink substance stuff. I don't think there's any chance that Diggs returns to New England. We can all remember his 2025 season very fondly. We can thank him for his contributions. We could thank him for helping Drake May have the type of season that he had. But this is full force moving forward. A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and I think Kyle Williams as your top three receivers. Full speed ahead.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Eagles are asking whether a reloaded wide receiver room would make a possible A.J. Brown split feel more like a reset than a step back. Louis DiBiase with Locked On Eagles gets into it.
Everybody's opinion is different based on what moves they wanted to happen, what moves did or didn't happen. But me personally, I think the Eagles got better this offseason in 2026 compared to who they were when the season ended last year against the San Francisco 49ers in the wild card round of the playoffs. I counted 5 positions where Howie Roseman made upgrades compared to 2025, 3 positions where they downgraded, in 2 spots where it was kind of a wash. They really didn't do much to change that position. So 5 upgrades, 3 downgrades, and then 2 washes. Let's go position by position to see where I think they got it right and where I think maybe they got it, I don't want to say wrong, but maybe they sacrificed a couple spots in the name of getting better at other positions. Let's start on the offensive side of the football. I really want to highlight wide receiver, which has been the talk of the offseason, right? With all of the A.J. Brown trade drama. If they're going to trade A.J. Brown, what's plan B? Well, we clearly know what that is. It's Mekhi Lemon. It's Eli Stowers. It's Dontavian Wicks. It's Hollywood Brown. They signed Elijah Moore. This one was the toughest position, honestly, to decide black and white. And it's not really a black and white answer, but black and white, if you had to say gun to your head, upgrade or downgrade for wide receiver, what is it? Because from a depth perspective, from a versatility perspective, the Eagles are deeper and have more various skill sets in 2026 at receiver than they did last year. I mean, they have like 5 really good options at this position with different skill sets. I mean, Devontae Smith is a true alpha number 1 receiver. Mekhi Lemon is a slot merchant. Dontavian Wicks is a 6'1" receiver with good separation ability. Hollywood Brown is a really good vertical threat. I mean, they have kind of a basketball team of wide receivers. And then at tight end too, like I want to separate tight end, but Eli Stowers is going to be more used like a wide receiver as a rookie. You'd hope eventually, as I talked about on yesterday's show, he can eventually, produce and develop as a blocker. But this year, I almost want to count him as part of the receiver core. So from a depth perspective, from a versatility perspective, they're a lot better on paper this year receiver than last year. But even though you added like 4 or 5 new guys that can really help, A.J. Brown is still, even if he's only this guy for a couple more years, he is still in 2026 going to be a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL if he's healthy. And I think trading that guy away, regardless of the attitude and the distractions last year, I think your team is not better off without that football player. I would much rather have, next to Devontae Smith, a happy A.J. Brown. And that's the reason he's going to be gone, is because he's not happy. But in a vacuum, if A.J. Brown was happy, I would much rather have that player than Mekhi Lemon, Dontavian Wicks, and Hollywood Brown. I would much rather have A.J. Brown if he was happy and healthy, and I think we would all agree on that. Also, I do believe Jahan Dotson is a much better player than his numbers show in Philadelphia, and I think he's going to prove that in Atlanta. I don't think he's a first-round talent, which is what he was in 2022. He was drafted in the first round by Washington, but I also don't think he's a guy that can only get 200 to 300 yards in a season. I think he could be a much more efficient, higher volume wide receiver 3 in an offense that spreads the football around. So again, this is as good of a replacement plan as you can get at wide receiver. Mekhi Lemon, Hollywood Brown, Dontavian Wicks, Devontae Smith, Eli Stowers. Like when you lose an A.J. Brown, the fact that you still have this many good, productive players at this position is awesome. But would I rather have the core you had last year, the core you had in 2024? It's close, but yeah, I would. And so I would say a wide receiver from a talent perspective, it's a downgrade, but it's really close. I think it's definitely debatable. If Mekhi Lemon ends up being an elite slot player and Dontavian Wicks takes a step up, you can make the argument they're better off with this. But a lot of what we're seeing at receiver right now for the Eagles in the offseason is more of a projection because we don't really know if Wicks can take another step up. We've never seen Mekhi Lemon in the NFL. Is Hollywood Brown going to be the same player this year? What does Devontae Smith look like as the number 1 guy? So for me, I'd rather go with the sure thing, right? I know what we have in A.J. Brown, Jahan Dotson, Devontae Smith. That receiving core won you a Super Bowl. So I went back and forth, but I'll say downgrade at wide receiver. But for me personally, like tight end is absolutely an upgrade. Like I said, Eli Stowers this year is going to be a really interesting, explosive receiving threat at the tight end position behind Dallas Goedert. And you did not have that guy last year behind Dallas Goedert. Graham Calcaterra, that's not that guy. I mean, Cameron Latu, like he's not that player. Back in the day when they had Jack Stahl, I mean, it's been a revolving door of tight end 2s behind Dallas Goedert for years. Since they traded away Zach Ertz in 2021, Stowers is by far the most dangerous weapon you've had at this position behind Goedert since 2021. So I think this is easily an upgrade. You bring Dallas Goedert back coming off a career year. And Johnny Munt is a really good blocking tight end, and the blocking at this position last year was egregious. In 12 and 13 personnel, look at Saquon Barkley's yards per carry. Like, it was abysmal. I mean, when Calcaterra was out there, Saquon's off, averaging like, I don't know, was it 3.1 yards per carry? I think there were times Saquon was averaging under 3 yards a pop. When Grant Calcaterra is on the field, Johnny Munt, he's not much of a receiving option, but he is a really good blocker. So you add Munt and Stowers to a tight end room that already had Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra. I think easily you upgraded that room compared to 2025. What about quarterback? Jalen Hurts and Tanner McKee are back. You add Cole Payton in the 5th round from North Dakota State. You trade for Andy Dalton. That's a pretty good 4-man group at quarterback. But I will say, I personally believe it's a downgrade at QB3 compared to what you had last year in Sam Howell. I believe Sam Howell can be one of the best QB2s in football. In fact, when he was in Washington, he was a solid starter, like a bridge quarterback. Like if you need a guy to start for a year or two, like if you're the Arizona Cardinals, could Sam Howell go over there and win that job? I believe so, but I'm a big fan of Howell, and I thought he was a luxury to have as a QB3 last year when they traded for him from Minnesota. And so Andy Dalton, yes, he's a really good veteran voice in that locker room for Jalen Hurts in a new scheme. He has played in this kind of system before, has a lot of starting experience. Cole Payton, I love the upside in that 5th round pick, but Dalton and Payton versus Howell, again, this is just from a 2026 standpoint. What's best for the roster right now? I think it's having a guy like Sam Howell that has starting experience and put up some big numbers in 2023. So quarterback, it's not much of a downgrade. I really like that room right now, and you still have a great top 2 in Hurts and McKee. But I think compared to last year, Howell versus Andy Dalton and Cole Payton, I would say it's a downgrade. So I'll go downgrade for quarterback. And then to finish things up at running back and offensive line, I think it's an upgrade at running back just because Saquon Barkley is going to be healthier. I think Tank Bigsby is going to be more involved. The running game is going to bounce back. And so you also add Dameon Pierce into the mix, who has return experience. He had a really good rookie year, albeit it was a long time ago. Like Dameon Pierce has experience, has a physicality to him that might be a solid upgrade or a wash with what they had last year in A.J. Dillon. And I'd hope Will Shipley is more of the rookie Will Shipley we saw in 2024 this year compared to year 2 Will Shipley in 2025. So it's not really that different of a room. I think Dameon Pierce and A.J. Dillon is kind of a wash there, but I think you just expect the 3 guys you have, Saquon, Bigsby, and Shipley, the top 3 from last year, are just going to be a lot better in 2026 compared to 2025. And then on the offensive line, I think it's an upgrade. I know they are very inexperienced when it comes to their depth, when it comes to the backups behind your starting 5, but I really like the talent and the upside of these backups. You've got Markel Bell now from the 3rd round. You bring back Fred Johnson, who's a really good swing tackle for Lane Johnson and for Jordan Mailata. I think Cameron Williams is going to be a lot better in year 2. I'm really excited about Drew Kendall in year 2. You've got Miles Hinton and Holland Pierce. Like, there's a bunch of guys. Micah Morris from Georgia, curious to see what he's like in the preseason. All of these guys are kind of a projection, right? Compared to Matt Pryor and Brett Toth from last year who have experience. But I think these guys are more talented players behind your starting 5. And you did bring back Fred Johnson, which was such a huge move. So on offense overall, I would say you upgraded. You upgraded at tight end, running back, and offensive line. I think you kind of downgraded at quarterback, but not enough to really notice in 2026. And at receiver, again, that one's up for debate, but I would say you downgraded just because you're losing a top 5 receiver in A.J. Brown.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.